My four best non-family friends are Grant, Aaron, Jill, and Amber. Grant is a family law lawyer. He is my doubles tennis partner and 5 years older than me. We had many discussions about divorce, reconciliation, expectations, and perspectives of married people. We discussed it over dinners and drinks at the tennis club, as spectators at sporting events, and during card games with other men. Aaron is a psychologist. We have done a number of charity events together and coach our son's basketball team and our daughter's soccer team together. Aaron is Grant's age, 5 years older than me, even though his son and daughter are the same age as mine, and they are good friends with my children. We also talked about divorce, reconciliation, expectations of men and women, and the psychology of marriage, sometimes with Grant, if Aaron joined our card group, often just the two of us. Jill is a marriage counselor and my mixed pickleball partner. Jill is 3 years older than me and is also good friends with my wife, Marie. In addition to meeting at the pickleball court and during lunch, Jill enjoys going on hikes, almost always with Marie and Jill's husband, but sometimes on her own. We also had many discussions about divorce and reconciliation. Amber is 3 years younger than me. I met Amber when I saved her from a bad situation. She claims that I saved her life, but I think that's overdramatic. Anyway, we became friends, and she also became friends with Marie. Amber is a public relations and media expert and probably has more friends and acquaintances than anyone else I know. The medical organization where I work, on my recommendation, used it a couple of times with great success to work with the public and the media. I probably talk to her on the phone or text at least every other day, and she often comes over to our house on the weekends and we hang out with her, sometimes with her beau. There is one more thing about Amber that only I know about. She works part-time for an elite escort. That is, a call girl. How I found out is another story that I won't go into now, but our relationship is such that she knows I don't judge her, so sometimes she even talks to me about it. She is lonely, but she has a wide circle of acquaintances. She enjoys her part-time job, and we often talk about relationships and the expectations of married people. If I ever cheat on Marie, I have no desire to do it, and I can't even imagine how to do it. I would want it to be with Amber, because she is the most beautiful woman I know, and she has a sparkling character. However, even if I were prone to cheating, and I definitely am not, this would never happen to her because she values our friendship, our relationship, my help, and my life advice. All four of my knowledgeable friends tell me that while there are exceptions, the two most common situations they know of when one, or both, spouses cheat are first when compromise is impossible and divorce is guaranteed. The second situation is when the offended spouse lacks self-confidence so much that reconciliation is sought regardless of the circumstances. In any case, the basic situation is black and white. In other words, there is no gray area. Of course, there are exceptions, but according to my friends, when cheating, they only take the gray approach about 10–20% of the time. I have often wondered what my opinion would be if I were the cheated spouse. Grant, Aaron, and Jill told me this. I never actually discussed this with Amber, but judging by other things she said, I'm sure she would have the same opinion. You can't know until you experience it yourself. I'd like to think that I would have managed to be in the gray area, but it's impossible to know until it actually happens. All four of my friends believe that a hard, no-holds-barred divorce usually doesn't work for those who don't cheat. Someone who doesn't cheat only finds a better spouse about 25% of the time and doesn't find anyone suitable at all 75% of the time. A cheater usually does not have a future life full of regrets and debauchery, as an honest spouse would like to believe, but in 75% of cases, he does not succeed. In the remaining 25% of cases, it almost completely returns to normal. In cases of forced reconciliation, the one who did not cheat usually, in 60–70% of cases, feels inadequate and embarrassed by his compliance, and often still ends in divorce within 5 years. Again, things are not going well for both the cheater and the one who is not cheating. Most of them don't end up living a good life afterward, but they don't end up penniless and hopeless either. The point is that black-white is not usually a solution. the gray perspective has the greatest chance of success. My name is Sam Buttry. At the beginning of this story, I was 35 years old, working for a large medical organization as a medical laboratory manager. I have a bachelor's degree in medical laboratory science from the University of Cincinnati, a master's degree in medical laboratory management from Virginia Commonwealth University, and an ASCP certification. 35-year-old Marie Buttry and I were married for 11 years and have 2 children, Jimmy, 9, and Julie, 7. Marie worked in pharmaceutical sales. This alone will tell you that she is pretty and smart, because although it is unfair, pharmaceutical companies only hire pretty sales reps. Besides being smart and pretty, Marie is in good physical shape. She and I train either together or separately at least 4 times a week, and we both have above-average muscles and endurance. I loved being married to Marie. We seemed to suit each other in almost every way. I would rate our sex life more than a 9 out of 10, and our friendships a 10. Marie is a good mother who gives our children sincere love and attention without overdoing it. Although we have some division of labor between men and women, for example, she does most of the cooking and I do most of the lawn work, we try to divide all household chores equally as much as possible, and both participate in both children's activities. I go to all of Julia's ballet recitals and take her to practice more often than Marie, and Marie takes Jimmy to all of his basketball practices, and I meet him there to coach his amateur basketball team with Aaron. And we have similar approaches to Julie, soccer, and Jimmy, band. Overall, I have a very good life. This is the life I wanted to preserve. At the beginning of my story, my life was about 99% what I considered ideal. Before this story began, I had never thought about what percentage of the ideal I would strive for before making difficult, drastic changes. One day in May, shortly after Marie's 35th birthday, I realized that I was not living 99% of my optimal life. It was Saturday, and Marie had returned late from the health club. In about 30 minutes, I had to coach Julie's soccer team and Jimmy had to go to band practice. Marie emerged somewhat exhausted from her car with a first aid kit containing drug samples and a duffel bag, pushed Jimmy towards the car, gave me a quick kiss, and Julie hugged me and wished me good luck. After the whirlwind left the house, while Julie was putting on a tank top and shorts, I went to move Marie's first aid kit from where she had basically thrown it on the living room couch to the home office. Perhaps she didn't lock the medicine cabinet securely, perhaps the latch was broken when she threw it on the couch, or perhaps there was some other problem, but when I picked it up, the case opened and papers spilled out. Luckily, the drug samples were in secure compartments and did not spill, as I would not have known how to separate them. All the papers were scattered, but I didn't think that putting them in any order would be critical. When I collected the papers scattered on the floor, there were 4 cards mixed in with brochures and order forms. 1 was a succulent birthday card from me, 2 were homemade cards from children, and the 4th was a sexy card with the front saying, "Happy birthday to your beautiful pizza ass," with a colored drawing of a pepperoni pizza slice, and the inside saying, "And to a playmate with the words, myself cheerful," handwritten between I and playmate, and the shadow of a leaning sexy female figure. Inside was the signature, "My pleasure, Rob." I was stunned. Although I didn't actually know who Rob was, I had my suspicions. For the last 2 months or so, Marie had been training a new sales rep named Rob, I forgot his last name, to take over some of her territory while she took over most of the territory of another employee who got pregnant and left. I photographed the exterior and interior of Rob's card. Then I put all the papers back and the cards under the rest of the documents, tightly closed the medicina cabinet, and put it back on the sofa in the living room instead of taking it to Mary's office. It only took Mary 5 minutes on a local company website to find his name and photo, Robert Driscoll. He looked no more than 25 years old. He was good-looking, like everyone in the pharmaceutical industry, maybe even a little better looking than usual for such a representative. In fact, he looked a lot like the guy Marie was dating before I swept her off her feet, according to her. By then, Julie was itching to get on with her game, so we got in my car and sped off. I kept up a conversation with her all the way, to take my mind off what I had just learned and what shocked me to the core. I was somehow able to get through Julie's game without breaking down, embarrassing myself, or acting like a sphinx, although I trusted Aaron more than usual when it came to substitutions and strategy. All the girls were happy when we won 4-3. It's always good when games are competitive and both teams score. After that, Aaron and his daughter, Julie and I, Julie's best friend on our team, and a girl on the other team who was a good friend of Aaron's daughter, went out for milkshakes. While everyone was having a good time at the table and enjoying themselves while sipping milkshakes, I excused myself and called Grant on his cell phone. Grant answered it after the first ring. "You better not miss our doubles match tomorrow, Boris," he replied without even saying hello. He calls me Boris, referring to Boris Becker, the former German professional who is considered the 11th best tennis player of all time. I hope he calls me that because he thinks I look exactly like Becker, 6'3", blonde hair, blue eyes, very attractive, or because of my tennis ability, and not because Boris was convicted of tax evasion after his retirement. This is not about that. How can I get you to just answer a few questions so we can have an attorney-client relationship, and you can't divulge my questions to anyone? I'm not kidding? He answered after a pause. No, I answered a little more decisively than I intended. Fine. Now we reach a verbal agreement on this. Tomorrow you give me $1 after our doubles match, and I email you the contract to sign on Monday. Fine? Agree. Okay, what questions? So far only one. Who would you recommend as the best private detective? After a significant pause, he asked, "Why do you need this? At the moment, you have no right to ask me questions, just answer." "Okay," he purred. "Wesley Associates. I'll give you a card tomorrow." "Thank you," I said. "I'll be ready for tennis at 8 a.m. That evening, Marie acted completely normal for a Saturday with both the children and me, including making it clear after the children went to bed that she was very bored and wanted to make love as soon as possible. I think I'm really good in bed because I was very active, first taking her to a 5-point finale and then having sex so intensely that she almost passed out and was limp as a washcloth when I was done with her. Is a very grateful washcloth. I really can't tell you what was going through my head as I ate and then had amazing sex with her. I do remember that the last time I had sex was probably the most energetic I had ever had. Maybe as a punishment, if that was the case. It didn't work because she came to the finish line like a charging rhinoceros. Maybe to ease the sadness. Maybe to win back his beloved wife who was thinking about another guy. I really do not know. The next morning, I almost slept through the first set of doubles tennis. I came to my senses during the second set and actually played my most aggressive tennis in years, hitting the ball like it was Rob Driscoll's head, and Grant and I beat a good team 2-6, 6-3, 6-1. Grant actually gave me a Wesley Associates card, and I gave him $1. Grant didn't ask any questions, but as we parted, he said sincerely, "If you need to talk, either as a lawyer or a friend, let me know." I thanked him and went home. That night, Marie and I had a repeat of yesterday's passionate night of love, only this time I had sex with her in different positions, and it gave us great pleasure, and in the end we experienced complete satisfaction. Wesley and his partners, operatives Annabelle Watson and William Bennett, justified Grant's recommendation. With the information I provided them, within 2 weeks they provided me with a full report. Unfortunately, I can't say that the report was what I wanted, but it was what I expected. 10 days after I got the private investigators on the case, after Marie and Rob had finished a phone call with a doctor in the suburbs, about 15 miles from our house, they decided to have lunch at the Motel 6, rather than at Olive Garden. They stayed in room 117 for 1 hour and 3 minutes. Wesley has high-tech equipment, and Annabelle and William are smart and sharp. So I got some photos taken through a window where the curtains weren't drawn all the way, and a lot of audio recordings. After I examined the evidence, I came to the conclusion that the sex between them was recreational. I don't want to explain why in detail, but a couple of reasons were that they almost never kissed, as far as could be determined from the audio recording and certainly never from Annabelle's or William's visual observation, and because Marie didn't say nothing about me that was even slightly negative. In fact, some things were positive, and Rob never criticized his girlfriend. To confirm my conclusion, I called Annabelle and William after my review, told them what my conclusion was, and asked if they agreed with it based on their experience. That's exactly what it seemed to me during those 2 weeks that I watched them, and not just in the motel, Annabelle said. I have to agree with her, William intervened. To double-check, I made an appointment with a female marriage counselor who was a friend of Jill's and whom I had met several times. I didn't want to drag Jill into this, and gave her the information I had without giving her my own, or Annabelle's or William conclusion. After offering a series of caveats to cover her ass, she agreed with my assessment. This was especially important because, frankly, I have to say that there was absolutely no change in the way Marie treated me, the children, or any of our mutual friends. Now that I had the necessary information, the question arose, what to do? I decided to use the gray approach, which all 4 of my closest friends recommended, long before my problem arose. This included considering how my optimal life had deteriorated, what was best for me, what was best for my children, what was best for my parents and friends, and even what was best for Marie. The conclusions I came to were, 1. I can't let Marie's affair with Rob continue. 2. If I directly confront Marie, it will definitely harm our future relationship. We will never be 99% whole again. If we worked on it, we could get back to 80%, maybe if we were lucky 85%, but never 99%. 3. Children should never find out. Although they were too young to appreciate it now, obviously the day would come when they would be able to appreciate it. I don't want this day to ever come. 4. I don't want to hurt Marie physically, emotionally, or mentally, except that I want her to wallow in doubt and worry for a long time that I might find out, even if I never meet her face to face. 5. I want Rob to pay. I had an instinctive caveman reaction to him. What I really wanted to do, although nothing good would ever come of it, was beat the crap out of him. I wanted to discourage him from having sex with my wife with a couple of quick kicks with steel-toed boots, like in some online fantasies. But I knew it had to be more subtle, but lasting. This couldn't entail telling his girlfriend because then Marie would eventually find out. 6. If I can get revenge on Rob, if I can plant a seed of doubt in Marie without ever confronting her or blaming her so that she never knows for sure, then I can hope that my life will eventually return to the 90% or more optimal, and 100% for children. 7. We must act quickly. I don't want another meeting between Marie and Rob. Now that I had all the parameters set, the question arose, what exactly should I do? Because I work for a medical company and run a laboratory, I know a lot about drugs, viruses, bacteria, and other substances that enter the bloodstream and the effect they have on the human body. After studying all the information I had, my first idea turned out to be the best. I will infect Rob with both herpes simplex virus 1, HSV1, and herpes simplex virus 2, HSV2. Both may appear within 2 to 12 days. If a particularly virulent strain of HSV1 is used, it can be said with almost certainty that it will appear externally within 2 to 4 days. I need to find a way to infect Rob so that he will show obvious symptoms within 2 to 4 days, while ensuring that Marie is not infected. I hired Annabelle and William again to carefully study Rob and try to find a way to make sure that Marie had no chance of getting infected from him before he showed obvious symptoms. Marie knows enough about medicine to easily recognize HSV1 and will avoid Rob like the plague and will undoubtedly be nervous. As it turned out, everything worked almost perfectly. The only thing that didn't work was that I couldn't stop Marie and Rob from having one more and final fun sex session. They had a meeting 13 days after the one that Annabelle and William witnessed. This time it was on a Tuesday in the suburbs at the Holiday Inn Express, room 142. They were in the room for 57 minutes, and there was good sound, but only 2 grainy photos. The audio recording, in fact, was no different from the first one, and did not contradict my conclusion about recreational sex. On Thursday, after this meeting, Rob was in the locker room of the establishment where he played squash. An out-of-town operative whom I had arranged and paid for online and whom I had never met in person came across Rob in the locker room and injected him with a high concentration of HSV-1 and HSV-2. I arranged the day so that Marie would have to stay home that Friday. She was almost finished teaching Rob, and he could handle the work himself. I also lied about winning a contest to go to Las Vegas, which surprised Marie. Marie and I had a surprise vacation scheduled for Saturday through Wednesday of the following week. She didn't see or contact Rob on the weekends. To make the vacation possible, I had already made arrangements with Marie's secretary to move Marie's appointments from Monday to Wednesday, and for her parents and mine to take turns looking after the children, taking them to weekend activities and to school and back on weekdays. The short trip to Vegas had the added benefit of improving Marie and I's sexual compatibility, which had been lacking to begin with, although I was still having trouble clearing my mind of her relationship with Rob. I wanted to give her the best sexual experience of her life, so I bought some little blue pills. In the 4 nights and 5 days we were in Vegas, Marie and I made more love than in any week before in our lives. This even included me having sex several times in different positions, even things that we had never even discussed before, and things that she didn't want to try in Vegas, but that she ended up liking once she recovered from her fainting spell. Marie left for work Thursday morning after our trip to Vegas, happier than I've ever seen her. She returned on Thursday evening, nervous and sullen. Of course I knew why. She saw the outbreak of herpes on Rob's face. Annabelle took a couple of nice photos for me. For the next week, Marie looked like a long-tailed cat in a rocking chair factory. It was clear that she had taken a blood test, obviously not at my lab, although that's where Rob had his test, and was waiting for the results. Through subtle questioning, as well as bugging her phone, I determined that she was no longer in a relationship with Rob, and indeed he had been fired. I guess the drug company doesn't like their sales reps walking around with herpes on their faces. Apparently, Rob recognized the symptoms as soon as he had his first attack and started treatment immediately, so maybe it won't ruin his life forever. One way or another, I don't care. You can name the day when Marie received negative tests. It was Wednesday, a week after our trip to Vegas. She looked like the happiest person in the world. She attacked me that night. She had previously been begging for sex ever since we got back from Vegas, first complaining of sexual fatigue from our sex dates there, and then of a disease she didn't want me to catch from. Why did she even sleep in the guest room? On Wednesday, she looked like a bitch in heat as she rode me like a champion cowgirl. For the next 2 weeks, I quietly tormented her, allowing her to overhear conversations about someone being fired from her office for having herpes. She didn't ask how I knew, although she didn't tell me, but it was my lab that ran Rob's blood tests. Over the course of several weeks, she would sometimes look at me strangely, wondering what I knew, but it never affected her actions. In fact, she seemed to be making an effort to be even more affectionate and sexually available than usual. You may be wondering how I spent the money without Marie finding out. Between private investigators, an out-of-town operative, a trip to Vegas I supposedly won, and many other unforeseen expenses, it cost me over $25,000. I borrowed money from Amber, with an agreement to pay it back gradually over 30 months. However, there was one caveat before Amber lent me the money. She wanted to know why and promised never to tell anyone about it. I trusted her, especially since she still had the belief that I saved her life. Although in my estimation this was an exaggeration, what I got her out of was a serious, risky business, but nothing more. So I told her. I tried to tell her just the basics, but in the end, she got the whole story out of me. I also told Amber that I might give up on Marie once the kids went off to college, if I couldn't completely forgive and forget her affair. Amber placed $25,000 cash in front of me and said, "That's the problem. You get them back gradually over 30 months, but that's not all. By the time Julie goes to college, 11 years from now, I will have quit my part-time job early. If you give up on Marie, you and I will become a couple to see if we can be compatible in the long run. Agree? I couldn't believe what she just said. This meant that she had subtle feelings for me. And although she would never try to break up my marriage, if she did, she wanted to try to be with me. But you are younger than me and can get married earlier, I muttered. Younger doesn't mean anything. The chances of me marrying someone other than you are slim. But if that happens, we'll reconsider everything then. So, is this a deal? Or should I put that money back under the mattress? After a pause, I said, deal. Then Amber kissed me on the lips for the first time in my life. It wasn't an easy kiss. It was the kiss that turned off the fire alarm. My knees went weak after she interrupted him. This won't happen again until Julie goes to college, she grinned, then stuffed some of the cash into my pants. While I was all excited and she clearly felt it and smiled, left the rest of the money on the table and leisurely walked out. It's been 8 years since Rob got herpes and Marie found religion, so to speak. I now truly believe that I have over 90% of my optimal life, and I am very glad, especially considering how well my children are doing, that I took the gray, also known as weighted, approach rather than the black one, or white. Sometimes I almost wish I had given Rob herpes and gotten him fired. Almost. The reason I ultimately don't feel guilty is because if I hadn't done something about Marie's recreational sex with Rob, I would never have been able to psychologically accept the gray approach. Will I give up Marie once Julie goes to college? At the moment, I can't say. I know Amber stays in the background. Of course, I paid her back the loan in less than 30 months and gave her a diamond bracelet after the last payment. Since then, I have never seen her without a bracelet. Just 2 days ago, while we were hiking with a group, including Marie, Amber, and I fell behind the others, and Amber said to me, "In case you're wondering, I quit my part-time job." I smiled at her. She smiled back. "Only 3 years left before Julie goes to college," she chuckled. Then I received the second hot kiss of my life from her, and we quickly caught up with the others.